Welcome to PHP tutorials. So we are going to continue on our last video on our last tutorial on the generating a login screen. So if you remember, till what we did so far is that we created a login PHP program where you submit username password and it allows you to log in or give success or failure message. So we had got it working with this, and now we decided to connect to the database instead of hard coding the programs, hard coding the usernames like this, because you probably in a real life application you probably have lots of users, and those users would be stored in some sort of a database. So what we have is a MySQL database here. Let me log in. So what you are seeing here is actually a PHP MyAdmin interface to my MySQL database. Database name is AMP. So to create a table, what you do is that you create a table, let's say called T1. Now some of you who are wondering what I'm doing, because you may not have any idea about the PHP MyAdmin or anything, so you should download PHP MyAdmin and install it if you have a local environment, or check with your ISP if you have a server environment, see what sort of, if they probably have already PHP MyAdmin. So you say 3 fields, and then you click here, and then you say one is user ID, the next one you say the length is 10, so varchar is our data type, which is basically a string data type. Then you say password, you say again 10, and maybe you can have a maybe record created date. So typically you have the day the record got inserted. So let's say you have, call it as date. There you go. And you can make it, this is nullable and these two are not nullable. So we have our now table T1. If you see in our database, it has T1. So let's click here and let's insert some records. So you insert, and we insert maybe 2 records. One is Joe, next one is Joe1, and maybe in this dev, and password is foo. Okay, I think we probably had another table called T1, so I think probably it didn't get created. So we have, I think let's create in an user table. So we have a user table which has the similar fields I have created in the past. So let's use this one. So we say Joe1 dev foo. We can leave the record creation date as blank because they are. So we inserted 2 records in the user table, and let's see the records. Okay, here we have, as you see, user ID is Joe, password is Joe1, and we have another one as dev and foo. So let's now try to look into this table to validate the username and password when person tries to log in. So we go back to our code. So here what we have to do is that we have to connect to the database and retrieve the username and password. So PHP has a MySQL driver, and let me show you how that works. So instead of doing this, what you do is you say connection equal to MySQL connect. So this is a PHP function which you use to connect to the database, and it accepts a username and password and a host name. So first parameter is host name. In our case, it is the ISP which I'm using is called ModWest. So the host name is db2.modwest.com. That's the host which hosts which where the database resides, and the username is K12 edu, and the password is AJ12123. So that's the username password. Now to verify the connection, what you do is if connect, so you say if there is a valid connection, then the connection this would have a value. If it is not, then it will not have a value. So you say die couldn't connect. You can ping, or you can append the MySQL error. So what this line does is that, so if this line you're connecting, now if the connection goes successful, then connection will have a database handler attached to it as a value to it. But if it doesn't work, then connection variable would have null value. So in that case, it will come to this line and it will add the MySQL error. So this MySQL error would have the error string for reason for the connection to fail. So it will have that string here. So if the connection goes successfully, then the next step would be you attach the database. So this, what it does is in MySQL select. So what this does is that it takes the connection and then attaches with the MySQL database. So typically when you connect with this user, the way MySQL is architected is that there could be a multiple database this user may have access to. So you have to choose one of them. Even if he has only one user or one database that can connect to, you still have to tell here that which database you want. So in our case, the database name is AMP. Okay, and now you have to do a query. So the syntax for this is you say MySQL query and you say select star from, let's say, what is our users. So that's our query, and you are querying and you are assigning the result to result variable. So essentially this would return an array, and so let's say even if there are one row or multiple rows, result would always be an array. So then you have to loop through an array. So we'll do a simple while loop. So we'll do while row equal to MySQL fetch array, and then we pass the result here. So what we are doing is that here in this line MySQL fetch array, we are fetching the array out of the result, and then we are assigning it to each of the record. We are assigning it to a row, and then we are looping over it. So let's say we will, since in our particular case we'll have only one row. Okay, by the way, I forgot to do one thing. So select one is where user ID equal to, let's say user. So user equal to, here if you have to say row user ID. So we have row user ID, and same thing let's do for the password. So let's see what we are doing here. Okay, so we first connect using MySQL connect. Then if the connection goes fine, we assign it to the database. So what this connection variable has after the connection happens, it has the database handle, and then we take the handle and attach it to a database, and then we run the query. So MySQL query result. So then and then after that, so result is an array. So after that, we loop through an array for the record. So for example, let's say if we have records are David and Fu. The next one is Joe 1 or Joe and Joe 1 or something like that. So in the first line, so row would contain, row basically is a record that contains this array. This particular, there are two fields, right, which is an array. So that when it loops through it, then each time row gets this entire record, one record each time. Now in particular case, because we are using a where clause and we are putting the user, so we'll just have only one row. So anyway, so at the end of the while, we'll have user and password. So user ID would be Joe because we are using the Joe. So only thing we need to do is so let's not take the user, because user would always be the user ID which you're passing here, right? So we just do the password, and then we just compare the password with the value. So if the password equal to whatever the password the user entered. So since this variable also is called password, so we can call it password from database. Okay. Usually we don't name our variables like that, but just to keep it simple, we just name it like that here. So we say password from database equals to password. Okay, let's name it as password entered by the user. Password entered. Then it is success, otherwise failure. Clear? Now there is one more case. If the user ID itself is wrong, right? So if the password itself is null, so let's handle that condition also. So maybe what we can do is that here let's add another condition. If okay, looks like I went beyond the time, so we'll stop here and then we'll continue from the next video. Thank you.